Let's talk about our keynote speaker for this Crime Summit, this 2015 Crime Summit. Our keynote speaker for this Crime Summit is Mr. Simon T. Bailey. Simon T. Bailey teaches influencers how to improve themselves and change the world. He has 28 years of business experience with 6 different companies and is the former sales director for the world-renowned Disney Institute based at Walt Disney World Resort. Since leaving Disney, he has spoken to over 1,000 organizations on 6 continents. His wisdom and expertise enabled an Orlando-based healthcare system to be acquired and a division of a hospitality company to be ranked #1 for customer service by Expedia.com. His new book, take a look at this new book that he has, Shift Your Brilliance, Harness the Power of You, Inc., by Simon T. Bailey. He is also the author of the best-selling book, Release Your Brilliance. So Release Your Brilliance, Shift Your Brilliance. These books, he has them, he will sign them. They are for sale, so please, we want you to pick up a copy of Mr. Bailey's book. You are going to enjoy him. Been watching his videos online. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome our keynote speaker for the 2015 Crime Summit, Mr. Simon T. Bailey.
Good morning. Do me a favor, look at the person that you're sitting next to, look him in the eye, and tell him you look marvelous, simply marvelous. Somebody said, I look marvelous and I feel marvelous. Well, first of all, thank you, Sheriff Demings, for this amazing opportunity. And I would just like for us to take a moment. If you are not involved with law enforcement, if you're a citizen of the community, would you just do me a huge favor and just stand very quickly? Just stand. If you're not involved with law enforcement, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to give a hand to all of the law enforcement people that protect our county and our community. Give them a hand. Come on, you can do better than that. Give them a hand like you're rooting the Magic on. Come on, give it up. Come on, give them a whoop whoop. Come on, show them some love. That's better. All right. All right. First of all, thank you to all of those that are in law enforcement that protect our community. I am so happy to live in our community. I travel extensively around the world, and anytime I can be home in Orange County, it's a good thing. 50 years ago, my father immigrated to this country from Jamaica, and he picked oranges in Mount Dora, Florida. My mother was born in Sanford, Florida, but my mom and dad actually met in Buffalo, New York. 29 years ago, they dropped me off at Morehouse College, and at the end of my freshman year at Morehouse, they called and said, we don't have the money to send you back to Morehouse, nor do we have money to bring you back home to Buffalo, but we do love you. And how many folks realize I didn't quite feel the love? So I dropped out of Morehouse College, moved into a drug-infested community in the southwest part of Atlanta, Georgia, only had a mattress on the floor, a bright green beanbag from the 70s, a couple of milk crates turned over with a black and white TV on top of it with a hanger hanging out of the back of the TV with a piece of aluminum foil wrapped around the hanger. Excuse me to all the English professors in the room, I was not poor, I was po. That's 2 levels below. I was so broke, I walked past the bank and tripped the alarm. I mean, it was just a bad situation. I eventually did go back to school, finish my undergrad, finish my master's degree. I was just on the 10-year plan. And my parents said, it took you 10 years to finish your degree. I said, because you didn't pay. But I love you. I ended up moving to this great state of Florida, the Orlando area, about 23 years ago. Had an opportunity to work at the Hyatt Orlando Airport and then on to working for the Orlando Convention and Tourism Bureau, and used to sell the convention center, which was just a mere 500,000 square feet. It's amazing to see that our convention center in our town is #1 in the world. And then from there went to work at the happiest place on earth. One day, I was sitting at my desk at Disney, and I was invited to get up off my blessed assurance and go and work in the park. So whenever the parks get real busy in the summer, it's all hands on deck. And if you look at me, I am all about the air condition. I'm not necessarily trying to work at anybody's theme park here in Florida in the months of June, July, and August, trying to work on my Godiva tan. But anyway, I found myself at Disney MGM Studios, got on a blue smock, a broom, a dustpan in my hand, my name tag that says Simon from Buffalo, New York. By the way, go Bills, this could be the year. And I want you to imagine with me, I'm not having the best day that day at the happiest place on earth. I have beads of sweat pouring down my head. How many of you saw the movie Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman and Will Smith, right? I'm just out there in the park and I'm just like, wah, wah, wah. I am not feeling the love. I'm like, whatever. But I realized that the Mickey Mouse police might be watching me through the camera, so I needed to flash the Disney smile. And some guests were coming towards me because, as you know, living here in Central Florida, we never call them customers, we call them guests. And as they were coming towards me, they caught a glimpse of my name tag that said Simon from Buffalo, New York. They said, we're from Buffalo, New York. Like, no way. They're like, where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? What's your parents' names? I didn't know these people from Adam's House Cat, let alone from a can of paint, but we were having a major conversation. So I said to them, what have you done since you've been here at Disney? They were like, oh, we've gone to Epcot, we've gone to Magic Kingdom, we've gone to Animal Kingdom. I said, now that you're here at MGM Studios, you have to ride Tower of Terror. How many of you have been on Tower of Terror, just out of curiosity? All right, great. For those of you who have not been on Tower of Terror, major bucket list item, major bucket list item. And then I said, after you finish, go and eat at, see Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular and eat at the Brown Derby, which is old Hollywood with a Disney twist. And they said, really? I said, really? So a couple of hours later, I'm back at my desk drinking something cold to cool off, and that's when I had the whack upside the head. That's when I had the V8 moment. I was with a group last week, and I told them that's when I had the Horseshack moment. And somebody in the back said, who's Horseshack? I said, oh, Lord, we have an age gap here. How many of you just had a Welcome Back Carter moment right there, right? And what I realized is that Disney never sent me out to the park to sweep the streets. They sent me out to the park to connect with a family that had probably saved 3 to 5 years of their discretionary income to come to Disney for maybe once in their lifetime. And a family of 4 in a 7-day stay, according to Disney Business Analytics, will spend about $10,000. So the reason it took Disney 2 years to hire me, 10 interviews, and a 10-page psychological analysis from Gallup is they understood one fundamental thing. Hire for attitude, train for success. Training does not fix what human resources doesn't catch. And that day, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to say, I mean this figuratively, not literally. That day, I quit my job at Disney and I went to work at Disney. Because Disney didn't hire me to do a job, they hired me to create a moment. Now you're probably saying, Simon, that's awesome. Where exactly is this going and what does it have to do with the Crime Summit? Well, it has everything to do with it because when I begin to understand that Disney was in the business of creating moments, I began to step back and I came across some of the research work of Dr. Howard Gardner, who talks literally about multiple intelligences, but also the work of Dr. Daniel Kahneman, who went on to say that there are 19,200 daily moments. And when I looked at that, I said, wait a minute, shut the front door. Moments create momentum, and momentum creates monumental results. When we look at results, if we reverse engineer the results, they come from momentum, and the root word for momentum is moments. So when I look back over my life, and as we think about where we are right now as a community, it is really a collection of moments compounded over time. When we think about what has happened in Ferguson, Baltimore, North Charleston, and as I have looked at it from the standpoint of a Monday morning quarterback or just a citizen looking at it from afar, it appears as if there has been them against us type of mentality that has been compounded over time. And what I am so proud to say here in our Orange County, in our community, we have a sheriff and we have deputies who go above and beyond to be proactive, to be transparent with the community, to let the community know what's going on so that we create moments and momentum. I was so happy to hear what Captain Torres said. I did say that right, Captain Torres, who talked about DMC, and I think what is so powerful about law enforcement training young adults in the moment so that we can start to really understand who we are, where we are, and how we can even be better. Our community is great. Our community is great because as I was thinking about this, I started to look at some of the work of Abraham Maslow, who in 1943 began to introduce Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is really a snapshot of human motivation. And if any of you have looked at psychology or human motivation, you are familiar with his work. The first level, which is the physiological level, really is that every human being wants air, water, clothing, shelter. Once that need is met, then the next most important need is that of safety, personal security. Am I going to be okay? Financial security, well-being. And then what's interesting about personal security and well-being, as you move up, you look at this piece called social, which in some circles, some might say it's belonging, others might say it's relationship. But one of the interesting things, as human beings, we are wired for relationships. And when we do not have relationships, or if we are in a community that does not get us, we feel not only lonely, but sometimes it moves into clinical depression or social anxiety, where individuals are saying, where is my opportunity? Do I matter in life? And what's very interesting, if we are to make a difference together, we must realize that if those first three needs are not met, or if those needs are threatened, it causes the brain to be wired in a certain way where we miss things and begin to say, because my world is like this, I have been doomed to become this. Now let me unpack this a little bit more. Within every brain, there is a mind. Within every mind, there is a belief system, or what Peter Senge calls in his book, The Fifth Discipline, a mental model. Within every mental model, there is a shaper, and within every shaper, there is an agenda. So if I want to shape a mind who has a need for safety and also understanding how do they fit into the social culture, how I can control a mind is by creating moments for that person to believe in a certain way. And when that person begins to believe that society is not for them, they begin to look through a lens and see that same thing happening over and over again. So what happens, people don't see you as you are, they see you as they are. And they begin to communicate from a place of saying, will my needs ever be met? Now, the reason this is very important, just yesterday, I was invited by one of the teachers at Edgewater High School to come and to spend some time with about 150 students, and they wanted me just to share with them some thoughts and some success. And within the last few weeks, we've been with major companies all over the world. And so they wanted to just have a snapshot, and I shared with them for about 10 minutes, and then we took about 30 minutes to answer questions. And if you would have heard some of the questions that the teenagers were asking me, 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age, very interesting questions. But one of the things that I continued to realize in the midst of those questions was that the work that we're doing here at this crime summit is so that we might not only be aware of what's happening in our community. But all of us can begin to say, how do I put the mirror in front of myself and as a citizen, as a taxpayer in Orange County, ask myself, what is the one thing that I can do? What is the one thing that I am being empowered to do? Because this whole conversation is a macro conversation. But where the rubber meets the road is the micro conversations that I hope that all of us are taking back into our places of business, our organizations, our neighborhoods, and our homes. Because when we move into a micro conversation, then together we can make a difference. So you're saying, Simon, okay, that's great. Now, how do we move from a micro conversation, and what is the actionable thing that we can do? And that is to create what I would call a micro moment. In creating a micro moment, it's really understanding that if we are to shape, let me say it a different way. If we are to continue to build on the positive momentum that we have in our community as the crime rate decreases, how do we continue to support law enforcement and speak well of them? How do we begin to talk about what law enforcement is doing right in our community? How do we create micro moments and begin to spread the word in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our schools, in our churches? How do we continue to share what we are doing and can do more of? Let me just highlight just a few things that I asked the sheriff's office to put together for me, because I wanted to understand, what is it that we are doing right, and how do we do more of it? So these are things that perhaps you already know, but I just want to highlight them because I think it's important. The sheriff's office puts on a safety council event every year, and this event allows the community to interact with our deputies, and they provide our specialized equipment, helicopters, SWAT trucks. They begin to tell the story as to how it protects our community. I thought that was very interesting. The sheriff's office also promotes safe holidays, National Night Out. Now, let me just add a disclaimer here. What I am sharing with you in the moment, Sheriff Demings has not reviewed what I am saying to you. So this is not some propaganda message that the sheriff told me to say. I'm saying this as a citizen of the community who looks at things from the standpoint of the glass is always half full. The other interesting thing that the sheriff's office does is the Children's Safety Village and Shop with a Cop. And you saw the video of Beautiful Feet. Those are amazing things. What are we doing to create micro moments and tell the story of why our community is safe and protected? Yes, I hear the conversation in your head. Yes, there is crime. That's a very real thing, and we do not diminish crime and people who do it. But how do we as citizens begin to say, what can I do? What can we do to create moments? A teacher was working with a couple of his students in the sport of archery, and he took them out into a field and he set up a wooden bird as a target. And he took them a little bit more of a distance, and he said to the first student, I want you to get ready to shoot the eye of the bird, but I want to ask you, what do you see? And the first student said, I see the tree, I see the leaves, I see the sky, and I see the bird. And the teacher said, I want you to wait right over here. He said to the second student, what do you see? And he said, I see the eye of the bird. He said, go ahead and shoot. And that second student released his arrow, and it went through the eye of the bird. What's interesting, the question is, what's the point? Until you focus, you cannot hit the target. And what I have discovered over the last 13 years since leaving the Mouse House to work with 1,000 organizations on 6 continents is that sometimes in organizations or in communities or in cultures, everybody is talking, but not a lot of people are listening. And if we are going to create a moment, may I, with your permission, please ma'am, please sir, give you 7 quick ideas that you can begin to think about implementing as it relates to creating micro moments. I ask our team, what is it that we know about communities of success and excellence? And they said, Simon, there are people in some communities, in some areas who are scattered when it comes to issues of the day, but those who really focus in on what's happening are totally present to the moment. They are those who communicate, want, blah, blah, blah. But then there are those who say, how do we really connect to what's happening real time? Then there are those who operate inconsistently, but then there are those who operate consistently. Then you'll see something that says it is all about the transaction, but then those who really understand how do we create micro moments focus on relationships. As you continue to move down through this, you will come to a part in this particular slide where it says there is selective hearing and authentic listening. Ladies, you have 2 problems with men. Somebody said only 2. I was waiting for it. Ladies, the 2 problems you have with us men is we don't talk and we don't listen. And when we listen, we have selective hearing, but guys, I'm not going to leave us stranded. I believe what allows us to make a difference together is when we really listen. Now, if you are taking notes or if you are tweeting out, if it is repeatable, it's tweetable. The same letters that spelled the word listen spell the word silent. And when I am really listening, I am listening to understand what is happening in this moment, because moments create momentum and momentum creates results. I believe that we are living in a society right now where people are overwhelmed with a terabyte of information. They are drinking water out of a fire hose, and what is going to break through to create micro moments is to begin to listen or move to what I would call a place called meta listening. Meta listening is when I listen between the sentences, when I listen to really understand where a person is coming from, and when I understand that the same letters that spell the word listen spell the word silent. When I am really listening, I'm identifying how do I serve the moment. And in serving the moment, I then move to the last area that you see on this slide. Some people are comfortable, but community activists who love their community are curious. They begin to ask, what can I do to be a part of the solution and to support the awesome work of our sheriff's office? And so let me tell you a story. Since leaving the Mouse House 13 years ago, I have read, have seen in my travels around the world all of the problems, and even when I have heard of things in our community, I have turned the other way. Ignore them. Hey, it doesn't bother me. I'm flying. You know, it's all good. But one day, something happened to me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to stop complaining about what's wrong, and I want to get involved. And I came across an organization called the U.S. Dream Academy that was started by Whitley Phipps. They're in a number of cities around the United States. They have recently just opened up here in Orlando, and their involvement is to go to the schools and help kids who are at risk after 3 p.m., help them think about finishing school. And what's interesting about U.S. Dream Academy is that some of the kids that they positively impacts parents have been incarcerated. In fact, there could be multiple generations that have been incarcerated, and their goal is to break the chain. And so I said, you know what, I need to get involved with that. And what I realize is it might not be much in the big scheme of things, but for me, it got me out of my comfort zone and got me out of whining and complaining and wah. And the more and more I've gotten involved with them, I've seen the stories of how these kids are not only finishing school here in Orange County, but they're going on to college and they're making something of themselves. And here's what the research says. Gallup says that right now here in the United States, there are about 75 million students that are in our public schools. 50 million of them are in 5th to 12th grade, and 30% of them will not graduate on time or drop out of school. When Gallup does the deeper research to understand why are kids dropping out of school, and there is a significant skewing of the numbers to African American and Hispanics, they are saying that the reason kids are dropping out of school is not because the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is not investing money and all of the other philanthropic organizations aren't giving money to it. You know why they said kids drop out of school? Is that they lose hope. They lose hope for a better future beyond school. So what happens is not only do they drop out of school, they drop out of life. And when they drop out of life, who do you think takes care of them? Who do you think has to now deal with that problem of that child who didn't finish school, who grows up to be an adult, and because their needs have not been met at some level, then all of a sudden crime begins to fill a void of a community that forgot about them. So my question, oh brilliant one, you do know that you're sitting next to oh brilliant one, right? Just do me a favor, look at your neighbor real quick and just say, good morning, oh brilliant one. Come on. Somebody just woke up there. Somebody said, I'm glad you finally recognize. You may be slow, but you're worth waiting on. I've got to bring this to an end because I know I stand between you and lunch. In your packets that you received when you registered, you will see a sheet that says, together we make a difference. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you'd be so kind, just to take that sheet out and turn it over. I said to our team, I want to make sure that we give people some practical things to take away that they can implement. And so when you flip that sheet over, you will see something that says, focus on them. One of the things that I believe has allowed our community to succeed is that we, in our own pockets, have conversations. And I believe where we need to ramp up the conversations a little bit more is to have the difficult conversations to say, how do we not only continue to support law enforcement, but in our neighborhood associations, in our ethnic groups that we represent, how do we not just stay in our circles, but how do we have the bigger conversation? What do I mean the bigger conversation? Ladies and gentlemen, if everybody in your circle looks like you, your circle is too small. I have discovered sometimes as we are in a very busy world, we want broadband results, but we're using dial-up methods. And I believe if we're going to create a moment and really understand together, we being the operative word, I need somebody in my circle who doesn't look like me that can ask me a question, because the moment you ask a question, it immerses you on a quest to discover an answer that was waiting to emerge. But the answer would never emerge until the question has been teed up. So how do we begin to ask questions, focusing on them, having the difficult conversation to really get to the heart of the matter? Now, let me give you another practical thing, because all of you in this room are communicators. All of you have a sphere of influence and something to think about. All the research says right now is that the attention span here in America is down to 5 minutes. So when we are looking to positively impact individuals and shaping a belief system or creating a new mental model, I want us to begin to think about, as we seek to create micro moments, to get to it. Let them understand it, feed them a little bit, and then back off. Because a little becomes a lot over a long period of time. So, I want to leave you with this big thought. One of the things that I have discovered in the people helping business, we have invested almost 50,000 hours in understanding people. And I came across a TED Talk from Dr. George Aidi, who is an economist from Guyana, West Africa. And he said what's going to save Africa is the rising cheetah generation that will save it from the hippos. And I looked at this and I'm like, you know what, that's kind of like people. You know, most people start out in life as cheetahs, but over time become hippos. I was with a group a few weeks ago, and somebody in the back says, what happens when you put a cheetah with a hippo? They said you get a cheapo. Okay, anyway. Glad to see that translates here in O-Town. So here's the net takeaway. A cheetah, swiftest hunter in Africa, a cheetah can reach up to 70 miles per hour in just a few strides. A cheetah has dark tear marks near its eyes. When it's in pursuit of its prey, it doesn't chase all over for its prey, it stalks its prey. A cheetah. A hippo knows where the bodies are buried, knows where the landmines are, knows how to get things done that, are not necessarily written down. But here's the net takeaway. Every cheetah needs a hippo, and every hippo needs a cheetah to operate and to balance the environment. Now, if you are following the analogy or the metaphor, what I want you to think about is, how do I begin to leverage the cheetahs and the hippos around me? I am a hippo at best. I like things a certain way. I don't like anybody disrupting my flow. I want things to be consistent. But what I realize is I've needed some cheetahs in my life who don't see the world like I see it and can challenge me out of my stinking thinking and inviting me to be a part of social media and stop being a digital immigrant and become a digital native. And it's only happened because I've decided to surround myself with some cheetahs, not staying with my hippos, who think the same way, talk the same way, and look the same way. And so I leave you with this story as you think about, together we make a difference. A couple of years ago, I got a call from my mom to come home to Buffalo, New York. So I boarded the plane here in Orlando, flew up to Buffalo, New York, walked into the hospital room, and they said, we give your dad only a couple of hours to a few days to live. And it was like the punch in the gut, because I had never heard my father say to me, Sheriff Demings, that he loved me. And I'd always wanted to hear my father say that he loved me. So he had never said it. And my mother said, Reginald, Simon's here. So my father wakes up out of this coma-like state, and he looks me in the eye, and he says to me, I love you, I believe in you, and whatever you do, put God first. He closed his eyes, and a few days later, my dad was gone. At the celebration of his life, a few weeks later, a Caucasian woman came up to me and she said, "Your dad was my brother." I said, "Really?" You know, all kind of stuff come out at funerals, you know. Funerals become the great reveal. Did you know? And her husband was standing next to her, and her husband said, "Yes, your dad was her brother." And what I found out is that my mom and dad used to volunteer at a food pantry that her and her husband ran for homeless people in Buffalo, New York. And what I really believed she was saying to me in that moment on behalf of the relationship and the kinship she had with my father is that love and respect have no color. A few weeks ago, I was flying back into Orlando on a very late flight, and coming into my bedroom community, glad to see my mayor here from Windermere, and I was stopped by an Orange County sheriff because I was speeding, and I was wrong, and he was right. I was doing 55 and a 40. About 1:30 in the morning. And he stopped me, and I said, "Good evening," or "Good morning, Sheriff." And he asked for my information, and I gave it to him. And just in that moment, out of everything that's happened in all the cities around America, he looked me in the eye, and we had just a brief conversation. And he did what was right to be done because I was wrong. And you know what? I was okay with it because love and respect have no color. I had to respect his authority because I was wrong, and I owned it. I am asking all of us, how do we begin to own moments, create moments, engage moments, have the difficult conversation, and begin to say, what is it that I can do to make a difference every day in Orange County, not because I have to, but because I want to. So on behalf of my dad, who is in heaven, my mom still living in Buffalo, New York, I don't know when I will see you again. Hopefully I'll see you in the community. If you see me at Publix, say, "Hey." But if I don't see you again, I want to let you know, my fellow citizens of Orange County, I love you. I believe in you. To all my Hispanic brothers and sisters, te quiero mucho. We are in this together. Let's continue to make our county great and support our law enforcement because they are awesome.
Which deputy gave that nice man a ticket? Would you please give another big round of applause for Simon T. Bailey? Simon, that was wonderful, man. That was fantastic. Wow, that was great. Thank you for bringing him, Sheriff. That was a phenomenal, phenomenal talk. Really appreciate that.